as things happen in our world, from last Wednesday, the world is a different place. So we can't just go straight into halachas, although halacha are the things that are going to help us. And that's how we live our lives. And the challenge of life is, morning, Suze. Have you got your coffee with you? Got your coffee? What's that? Your milkshake?
It's a skinny decaf, no, not decaf, skinny extra hot latte, skinny.
But with what milk?
Skimmed.
Oh, do you like just that? I'd rather not drink milk, you see. No,
I think that oat milk.
Okay, we'll get them
anyway.
So the truth is, this morning, I got this message, and I was thinking of maybe sharing it, but I decided that, hang on one second. Okay, where is it? Anyway, I'm going to blend it. I'm forwarding it now to this. I'm going to just forward it. I'll forward it after because it's too. So you know when you know someone and you know a name and you put a place and then you can't place something. Anyway, the truth is that we shouldn't have to think about anybody that we know that's personal, closer, or whatever. The reality is that last Thursday was and is a wake-up call for each and every one of us, and we don't all like to hear that. And that is a challenge, and it's talking about us, each and every one of us. And I always say, when I teach and when I learn these things, I talk to myself just as much as anybody else. I'm just going to open for Deborah. Okay, so Deborah's joined us as well.
Sorry, everybody.
It's okay, everybody Eva's with us. Okay, we've got Dahlia in Australia as well, starting with us today. So I was just saying that this week is a different week from what it was last week. The world's a different world. The world is a different world, and as my beautiful friend Andy said in Eretz Yisrael this morning, she says she keeps trying to go and be Menachem Oval at family Koltai. They live on Rehov HaKablan, number 22. And for anybody who was with me on the Israel trip in 2018, Rabbi Manny Nissel spoke in their home. We had dinner there. Rabbi Manny Nissel spoke in their home. And after that, Risa. Oh my gosh, I can't remember their name out of my head. Her husband was one of the Kedoshim who were murdered in the Har-Nof massacre, and she came and she brought her books of the story. Were you there? You were there with us. So we ate in this family's house, and their bar mitzvah boy was joined HaKadosh Baruch Hu next to the Kisei HaKavod last week on Thursday. So she talks about who he was, what he represented. He was probably a malach that couldn't live in this world because he was such a perfect, really perfect child. And it's not only in hindsight, but it's like a place where we know where we are. And Hashem really took each and every one of the people who left this world, was each one more unique really than the next. And when we see the people that we consider to be not good people, Rashayim or whatever in the world, we don't really care whether they die or not, which is a strange thing also. But because really, if they go into the Olam HaEmes, whatever's going to greet them there is going to be greeting them. But Rebbetzin Rina Tarshish spoke on Sunday night in Tailstone, and she really said, that we have to remind ourselves that every single thing we learn, speak, do, whatever it is talking to ourselves. And it's a difficult conversation sometimes having with ourselves, right? Being honest with ourselves is not always an easy thing. And it is much easier to see other people's challenges and the things that they're doing wrong, but the things that we need to work on are certainly a lot more difficult. So, yeah, so that's where we are, and we are working on re-receiving the Torah. We are working on generating positivity, holding on to the rope. We're working on knowing and our emunah. And it says in the time of Mashiach that the people that are going to be tested most will be the ma'aminim, the people that really trust and believe. And when you hear stories that came out and are coming out still and will continue to come out, because while trauma's there, one can't always share their story. But the things that came out, and we have to remind ourselves that, you know, I think that the word that was used so freely and openly of a stampede, it was not. It was just the wrong word. It was an act of Hashem, and whether it would have been a landslide on a mountain, or whether this, whatever it is, how it happened, what happened, it doesn't matter really. Was it the policeman's fault? Was it this one? You know, they sprinkled water just before to help people cool down because it was so intensely hot and there were so many people. The floors were wet. You know, all these different kinds of things that happened and came into it. And Hashem can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. He didn't have to have that. But this was what he wanted. He wanted these people to be in their holiest level of spirituality as they were coming to join him. And people will tell you that if you were there moments before, by Boyan, by the wherever they were, whichever rebbe it was that you were there with, the singing and the immense kedusha that was taking place there, and the holiness of the words of Ani Ma'amin, and then, you know, going into whatever it would be, was just incredibly holy. Something which was just unbelievable. And yeah, those souls in their ultimate place of serving Hashem joined him in the world of MS. And really here, as Andy said this morning, really here, we are the ones that are left behind. We are the ones that are left in what's going on, what's happening. And you know, if we really all ask ourselves, what does Hashem want from us? We know the answer. You know, the little things that we know, each of us has something that we can do better in, each of us. And we shouldn't think that this is not a call for us to do better in Torah and mitzvahs. That's it. You know, we need all different calls. And yes, ultimately, this is the place that says, I know we're doing brilliantly. I know we're working hard. I know we're trying our best. There's a little bit more that we can do, tiny bit more, wherever we are in our tiniest little place. So it even is in, and I have to tell you, I you know, when you think that you do things and you know things and whatever, we do. But ultimately, as we learn, you know, the more we learn, the more we connect, the deeper we get to, the more we realize how much we actually have to do. So even though we think we're in a good place, when we actually say, okay, really, let's see. Okay, so Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'akol neh bidbaro. If anybody's around tomorrow at 10, Rebbetzin Silber will be doing a 2-week series on the colors of the world, okay, and how they also relate to the Sphira and whatever. And it's actually quite. I turn the lights on. Was out the room though, right? Okay, so yeah, I think that, you know, there are all these sorts of different things, and I think they just give us, and it's okay for them to give us a little bit more chizuk, because that's what we're here for. So I'm always reminded of the thoughts of, you know, what where we need to be, we have to put ourselves. Okay, so let's go with brachas. Right. Now, I want us all to be thinking that when we make any bracha today, okay, think about the source of the bracha, okay, think about the source of the bracha and recognize for ourselves where it comes from, okay, at any level, anything we do. If you have any opportunity for 5 minutes, like 3 minutes, of things, my hands, my this, my eyes, my food, my colors of the food, all the different things that we do and that we can, that we have, just remind ourselves, okay, that we need to, that this is what we need to do. And throughout the day, okay, remind ourselves of Tiferet Sheba Yesod, when harmony becomes embedded into the foundation of the world, okay, that our whole world can only exist and really be when it has all components. You can't live with just air, you can't live with just water. You can't live with just fire, and you can't live with just air, water, fire, earth, right? So we need all components of the whole world in order to just exist and breathe and live, okay? And when we understand, we can't understand what Hashem did, but the same Hashem, okay, the same God that makes us breathe, allows us to eat, right? Do you ever meet people these days that say, oh, since COVID, I can't smell properly? You ever met people in the last? It's amazing. A lot of people have told me since COVID, their smell sense never really came back properly, okay? In fact, somebody was just cleaning his drain the other day, and I was like, ugh. And he says, actually, since COVID, I can't smell properly, right? I can smell it, but I don't get the strength of the smell. Crazy, right? So the same God, okay. Anybody got an idea? I need an idea. Oh, here we go. What do you think about an idea of, I need an image of colors. What do you think?
Very colorful.
Okay, we need an image of spiritual colors. I wonder if when she was doing that picture, she actually had the spiritual spheres in her headspace. I don't know, but it's an interesting thing, but they're all shades. I know the one day that Rebbetzin Silber was wearing something pink, and she said, today I'm wearing pink for the week of the sphere. And tomorrow's like a deep, or the day before was a deeper pink. And I was like, okay, I guess, where does black fit into the spectrum? But maybe I should just get a different color scarf for every day, right? You need a different piece of bow or something that you just put on.
I always like in Megillah Esther, where it says, and Esther was green.
Yeah, and Esther was green. You know, all these different things, but everything has its spiritual component. Okay, now that I've been sidetracked on my spiritual components of colors. Okay, so when we make our brachas, I'm really sorry, girls. I'm just going to take this picture.
Beautiful.
Can't get it off. Are we just making a post now? This is what I need to.
And everyone will say, I wonder where I saw that. I know that.
I get the funniest things about this. We're actually just in the middle of a share, so my ladies are being very patient, so we get this done. I guess whether they like it or not. Huh? You have to be patient because that's what we're learning about, right? Okay, we're going to share more Torah. So when we're doing any bracha today, for 1 second, just take Hashem's world, bring it here, look at what he's given us, and just understand the exact same Hashem that has created the beauty and given us everything that we do is the same one that helps things to happen that we don't recognize that are good. If we understood the creation of the world and we understood Hashem just tiny little bit, we'd understand that absolutely everything that happens and that takes place, whether we like it or not, right, is actually good in Hashem's world. And it's a challenge for us. That's a challenge. Okay, but we're going to get there. Okay, now we're coming down to those very basic things. And again, we can take anything that we have and we can turn it into a place of growth. So there are various ingredients in cake. And we have learned that al ha-mechiyah may be made only if there's a kazayis of mazonos eaten within kedei achilas pras. Okay, so you're going to have a piece of cake. It's not such a big piece of cake that you need to eat in 3 minutes. If I put everybody to the test, I think we'd all manage, right? Like a nice...
To have a big piece.
Yeah, to have a big piece. No, we'd have to manage to have a small piece, okay. Right, Suze? Okay, like a piece like whatever size it would be. We have to eat it within the 3 minutes. Once we've eaten it within the 3 minutes, then we're good, okay? And then we can make an al ha-mechiyah. But it also has to be things that are...
So why do you have to eat it in 3 minutes?
Because that's what we call kedei achilas pas, your normal way of eating. It's only the first part. You can carry on eating afterwards. But right. The first part, like when we have bread, we make al netilas yadayim. If we make the blessing al netilas yadayim, we have to make hamoitzi lechem min haaretz. When we make hamoitzi lechem min haaretz, we will eat an amount of bread. It has to be at least a kibetza, okay, which is 2/3 of a slice of bread, in 3 minutes in order to bench. Now, there are a lot of people who take a little bite and say that's it and then bench. You can't bench. You can make hamoitzi, you can wash your hands without a bracha, but you can't bench because it's not a proper meal, okay? So if you want to do that, then you rather take a piece of bread that weighs to the size that you need to of a kibetza, okay? We make hamoitzi, and then you should rather wash. Now, why should we rather wash than eat anything else that consists of all the calories we don't want to have? Because when we wash and bench, we are making lots and lots of blessings and bringing Hashem into our world, okay? When you can eat a huge steak, not such a huge one, sorry, and a big salad, okay? And you can sit and you can actually eat your chips and your salad and your strawberry kiss and whatever and all the things. And you're going to sit there and you're going to say, Brayna Fashois, right? We're going to make the blessing afterwards. Brayna Fashois, Rabbeis Vachesronan, Al Kol Ma'aseh Barasa, La Choyos Ben Nefesh Kol Chai Baruch Elamim. That's it. When we have one slice of bread, we're going to go through the whole story. Thank you, Hashem, for taking out of Egypt. Thank you for rebuilding Yerushalayim. Thank you for creating our place. We say, Hamoitzi lechem min haaretz. This bread has literally come from the ground. How did it come from the ground? Why do we make a thing of it coming from the ground? Because for the years it came from the sky. Our food and our sustenance came from the sky. And then Hashem says, okay, guys, you've had your food and sustenance from the sky. Now the time is, we're going to bring it from the ground and you're going to have to work to do it. That's big stuff. You're going to have to put in work, time, effort, and energy in order to do it. Okay? So that is very, very, very much. That's what we're doing. Okay? That is where we are, and that's what we're doing. So when you have an opportunity, take a yummy piece of bread, focus on the bread, think about how it got to your table, how Hashem made it rain, how you made those seeds grow. I mean, it really can become a little bit like, hello, even the silly cup of coffee, you just think about what we go through in order to get the things that we have. Now, I'm not quite sure what it is that Yolanda is saying.
I'm patching my son's trousers.
Oh, okay. I thought to make yourself a nice Yom Tov friend. So we're patching trousers. I think that is so impressive. Okay, my mother-in-law used to darn the socks. If anybody darns socks today, I mean, I don't know who darns socks today. In the bin, go and buy the new ones at Primark. We're okay. Okay, but when you look at what goes into just making, just creating a pair of trousers, You know, you have to remind yourself all the things that happen in the world. Can I tell you something really funny? Does anybody ever have trouble, if you sew, sometimes threading the needle? So I saw it in the That's an Idea, in the Hamodia. It's actually the most fascinating column. I just, you've got to stop and read it. But if you keep, if you can't thread your needle, and if you keep some cheap, clear nail polish, and you just dip the end in, and then it dries, and then it threads easily. I'm talking to the seamstress here, right? Yeah. I have quoted you as being one of the most creative people I actually know. Well, between teeth and clothes and plants and law, and I mean, do me a favor. Yeah, exactly. That's what I say when I think about you. Hashem, you know, use your blessings well. Okay. So there are different kinds of opinions amongst our rabbis as to whether the ingredients of cake other than flour should be counted towards the kazayas. Okay, so for example, if the volume of a particular chocolate cake is half flour and the other ingredients are sugar, cocoa, egg, oil, okay, are half, the issue would be whether one kazayas or two must be eaten in that amount of time in order to make an al-hamachia. Most poskim rule that the other ingredients do not count, okay? In the above example, unless 2 kazesim of cake are eaten, an al-hamachia should not be set. Just to put your mind at ease as whether you ever have enough cake or enough rogalach, okay? I want you not to worry. I want you not to worry about this, simply because you know the little francs in a basket? I mean, francs in a blanket. You know, these little things, you only need 2 mini ones in order to make an alamachia, okay? An egg roll, okay? The bracha achrona, okay, is an egg roll. Only half an egg roll is enough, okay, in order to make an al-mechia. Farfel, okay, if anybody eats farfel, 1/3 of a cup, okay, only 3 long French fries are needed to make a barena fashos, okay. A falafel ball, okay, eggs, half an egg is a barena fashos. 1/4 cup of Cheerios is enough for an al-hamachia. 1/4 cup of Cheerios, okay?
So we never have to not say the after.
Basically, and if you haven't, have 1 more piece of something, okay? Have 1 more piece of something. It is only about 1/4 of a rogalach. Here, look at our crackers, breadsticks, 2 1/3 breadsticks. Al-hamachia, okay? 4 saltine square crackers, 4. Only 4 of them, okay? 6 of the tum-tums. 1, less than 2 flatbreads. Less than 2 of those require an al-hamachia. But now, if you have them while you're walking around the kitchen, okay, you might not remember to do that or how many you've had. I would never do such a thing. So I make sure that I walk around the kitchen, somewhere else, and wherever. Okay. All these different things that we really think need so much food, they really don't. Okay. 3 tea biscuits. Okay. Only, you know, those 28-gram wafers, you don't even need a whole one in order to, the individual ones, in order to make al-mechia. A small muffin, only a kazayas is 1/5 of a muffin, 2-inch piece of pie, and 3/4 of a rogalach. Okay, you don't even need a whole rogalach in order to make the bracha of al-hamachia. 2.5 of the cookies with the cream, sandwich cookies. Okay, guess how much of a donut? It's actually 1/5 of a donut, half of an eclair. Okay, it is quite amazing how little we actually do need in order to make the bracha of ala mechia. So if you tell me that it's difficult to eat that in 3 minutes, maybe 3 seconds might be a bit difficult, but 3 minutes is certainly an amount of time. You know, 1 3/4 chocolate chip cookies, average ones. We really do not need a lot in order to be able to make this blessing. And therefore, it actually is a good idea for all of us, and certainly working on this one, right, Suze? We're still in working because I haven't put on the weight yet. I just haven't dropped down more. But we're working. So the thing that we do, okay, so we recognize, the Mishnah Berurah tells us that although it's preferable to follow the more stringent view, nevertheless, the custom of the world, it is generally accepted, what we call the minhag ha'olam, the general practice, is to make an al ha'machiyah on a kazayis of cake, even though the cake being eaten contains less than the actual kazayis of flour. And I can tell you one thing's for sure, that a piece of my brownie, which is all eaten out from the middle, the plate inside, is definitely a small piece like that. You can for sure make an al ha'machiyah. Okay, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, ruled that it is not appropriate to rely on this minhag, and actually, even according to the ruling of the Mishnah Berurah, cake fillings such as cherry pie or cheesecakes are not counted as the kazais. Okay, so for example, anything when you're making your cheesecake, your fat-free cheesecake for next week, okay, your pie filling is only the pie filling of the pie filling is separate, really. So you probably will not eat unless you eat a lot of the base. Okay, you need to have enough of the crust in order to make an ala mechia, not including the pie filling. Okay. The prerequisite of making a bracha rishona for a bracha beforehand applies to the bracha afterhand. These prerequisites are a shi'ur ikul. When a person finishes eating, he has a limited amount of time within which to make the bracha achrona, the after bracha. The amount of time that it takes for ikul, halachically defined digestive process, to begin. After that amount of time elapses, he can no longer make the after bracha. So one of the things with bread, which is the easiest one to actually discuss, is that if you have not benched within 72 minutes after completing your meal, actually finishing bread, and you're no longer, or you could have something else to eat, and it's after 72 minutes, the truth is that you've lapsed your time for benching. Okay, so if you are at somebody's Shabbos table, soon you're allowed another family member, for those of you who are, okay, you are allowed outside people into your home, obviously, if you will allow them. You do not have to have, okay, but bottom line is that if you're sitting and schmoozing, okay, and you've stopped your meal and you're just drinking teas and coffees, and past 72 minutes lapses, you should within that 72 minutes have some piece of bread. Okay, so it's always good to just have a little bit of bread, just have a tiny bit of bread, so you know you're intending to continue your meal in order to bench. Yes.
What if you're still having like cake, a bit of cake?
Yeah, that's also fine. Cake and breads are fine because it's part of your meal still. But if you're just sitting and talking, no. But it is always better to try, even if you've got guests, to try and bench and then have your tea and cake and whatever, you know, unless your cake is your dessert, but otherwise to bench, also to let other people leave, okay? So it's a good idea to do that. But there's become something, you know, people will sit at a Shabbos table literally from, you know, 1 o'clock till 6 o'clock in the evening, and some people feel that you have to do that and you don't want to tell your guests to leave because it's being rude, but one does not have to do that. One is allowed to say that you need your Shabbos rest, or, you know, it is definitely appropriate actually to be able to do that. Okay. Beyond the requirement of making the correct bracha, okay, so So beyond the requirement of making the correct bracha, Chazal mandated a requirement to recite each bracha according to a defined order of priority. The halachas are discussed in chapter 11, applied to the bracha achrona as well, we've done. For example, if wine, dates, and cake are eaten in order within the text of the bracha, after bracha, the ala mechia, the cake, ala gafen for the wine, and the ha'etz for the dates, the bracha achrona for mezonos, for the fruit of the 7 species, and for the wine takes precedence over borei nefashos. Okay, so if you had cake, drank wine, and you had a fruit, you first make the ala mechia, and then we make the borei nefashos. Okay, what happens if you are including others in your bracha? So in certain cases, one may be moitzi, meaning that you can make the bracha on their behalf. The bracha achrona requirements we will talk about. Okay, now the other thing is that there is always a question of, one of the big questions that's been taking place is the question of whether one can make a bracha and say amen over Zoom and the like. And one of the things that we can do is we can make the after bracha. Somebody on Zoom can say amen, but you can't make the after bracha for them. So if you, there's a question of it, and this was always the question, like with Megillah and all these different kinds of things, there are leniencies for people who can't get it, but it's definitely better not, it's better for a person to make their own borei nefashos, hamoitzi, or whatever it is that they actually, that they need. Okay. Sorry, 1 second, it's just on. I don't know, I wrapped up and posted some shoes a couple of weeks ago. Just wanted to make sure that everything got delivered okay, that's all. Oh my boys, they do these, they buy these what's the name shoes and sell them, and I have to wrap them and post them. Yeah, they thought they make more money on it, but they don't.
Israel.
No. Yeah. But Aaron still has 2 pairs of Yeezys. Don't know, don't ask me. Okay, so in other cases, doubt. If one is not sure whether he ate enough, okay, or drank enough, whether he had a kazais or a vis within the minimum time discussed, he may not make a bracha achrona, an after bracha. With regard to doubt about benching, we will see. Similarly, if one does not remember whether or not he had benched, he is required to do so, providing that he was satiated. So if a person is still full and he thinks to himself, oh my gosh, did I bench or not? Okay. And if he is still feeling full, then the requirement is to bench when one is satiated. Okay. Even when in doubt. Okay. Because it is a bracha, which is a deraisa. Okay. It is directly from the Torah. Okay. And therefore, if you're in doubt, you bench. Okay, similarly, if one does not remember whether or not he made a bracha achrona, he may not make an after bracha. Regarding what to do, we will see. Okay, bread and products of the bread family. In chapter 5, we learned that foods which are eaten for desserts are often not covered by the berkas hamaitzi and require a separate bracha. This applies to fruit, candy, ice cream, and the like. However, products which are classified as bread do not require a separate bracha. Okay? Mezonos products, which are indisputably classified as a pas haba b'kisin, the bread family, but is not bread, are dissimilar enough to bread that would in certain cases require a separate bracha. For an example, something, let's see, as an apple pie. Okay, this means that it is neither bread nor biscuit. If there is bread, there are 3 criteria which must be met in order to consider a product as bread. It must be made of wheat, barley, rye, spelt, or oats. People will commonly use such a product as a mainstay of their meal. This is a normal thing to do. And it has Larissa de Nechama, bread-like properties, and it looks like bread. Okay, so it looks like bread as well. Now there are certain breads which are like totally gluten-free, and you actually have to toast them in order to eat them. And those ones breads you actually can't wash and bench on. So I think that there
So
are.
it's nothing to do with the yeast or the rising agent?
Not the yeast and yazing, no, not at all. Sourdough bread does not have yeast. You make hamaitzi and bench. Yeah. Yeah, I'm making a new starter. I messed up my bread on Friday. My head was definitely not with us. And I missed out the most important step. And my friend was just laughing at me. I said, you know, after what was going on Thursday night and Friday, I couldn't actually think. And when I looked at it, I thought, like, I forgot to feed it properly. She said, yes, that's right. There we go. But you've got to do that in order to learn for the next time. Baked goods, which are not commonly used as a mainstay of one's meal, but do have bread-like properties and appearance, are generally classified in a category called pas haba bakisnim. Okay, there is a difference of opinion as to which specific type of baked products are designated for this. Okay, some of our Rishonim, the earlier rabbis, define this pas haba bakisnin as dough filled with fruit or other fillings, like a fruit pie. Okay. Others say that it refers to the dough made with a lot of fruit juice, with extra oil, with honey, with eggs, with sugar or spices, sponge cake, chocolate cake, and most other cakes. Now, you should know sponge cake, like a light chiffon cake, okay, you need quite a bit of that to make an after bracha because it's so light and fluffy. So when you push it down, there's very little bit of it there that's flour, okay? It's more egg and air, okay? So you would need a little bit more of that. Other rabbis refine it as baked products, which have a dry crumble consistency as pies and pretzels. Okay, these products are not actually bread, and if one is Kovea Seuda makes his meal, this is his meal, I'm having breakfast or lunch or supper, and I'm using these things to eat with it. Okay, it is treated halachically as bread and requires washing hamaitzi and birkat hamazon. A meal consisting of 8, you ready for this? Kazesim of cake would be treated as a bread meal. Okay, now I can tell you that as a child, not such a child, I could take an entire packet of Mori biscuits. You all know what Mori biscuits are? Tea biscuits, petit beurre, but the round ones, and you could dunk it in your tea or your coffee. I could finish a packet. My friend and I did it a few times. We would need to wash and bench, okay? But if we haven't washed and you don't think, then you actually still need to bench. If you did not intend to eat more than 2 slices of Mazonis pizza, okay? If you did not intend to eat more than 2 pieces of Mazonis pizza, but you actually have, and you eat 3, even if you didn't wash beforehand, you should bench. Okay? So those things are, even if after, we still need to actually do what is needed to do, even if we didn't. Okay. So here we go. Okay. Products which have 3 characteristics. If a product has only one of the 3 characteristics, it is questionable. Let's just see this one second. Okay, so if a product has only one of the 3 characteristics of this pas haba bakisnim, it is questionable whether it belongs under the classification of bread or cake. Therefore, when determining if one must wash, make birkat hamazon, bench for such products, the uncertainty causes us to place them in the cake category. However, when judging if they require a bracha when eaten during the meal, it is again uncertain, right? Because it becomes, is this an added dessert and do we make mazonos on it, which would not require generally a separate bracha. But since the bracha requirement is questionable, a separate bracha should be made on cake when we eat cake during a meal, okay? Our rabbis advise that since in many cases making a bracha for cake eaten during the meal is questionable, one should have specific intention when making hamaitzi to actually exempt any cake that would come during the meal, okay? So this is quite, yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, also, other Rishonim will tell us that baked products which have this driving, okay, although these products are actually bread, okay, we need to make this into a meal. That is part of the problem. We also should not eat a breakfast of 2 large Danishes unless he intends to wash and eat bread as well, okay? So it's an interesting thing. We would prefer, why do we prefer to make a mazonos on something? Honestly. Because we've got a bench otherwise. Yeah. And it's really a pain. He wants to sit and bench. Okay. So for some people, making mazonos, and I think by Sfaradim, you can't even make mazonos on mazonos pita. Is that right? Sfaradim are always, is that right, Samantha? Sfaradim always convey a suda on a pita, even if it's mazonos.
You know what, Joanne? It's such a deep subject. If there's one drop of fruit or sugar on it, it literally has to be completely.
You can't have any sugar or any fruit juice in it. Otherwise you make mazonos.
If there is the sugar or the fruit juice.
So even ma'achala with the amount of sugar that goes into ma'achala, you might make mazonos.
Definitely mazono. You know your recipe?
Yeah.
So I have to convert it to 2 flat tablespoons of sugar.
Gosh.
Instead of your half a cup.
My neighbor literally used to come from upstairs and used to love it when I used to make my challah, because they'd make mazonos on my challah.
It's the best.
Yeah.
I use that for my pizza dough.
Yeah.
And then I make mazono on it.
Yeah. So we can't even do that. We have to actually make more fruit juice rather than water. Right. It's not just the sugar. It's an amazing thing. But we're lazy, you know? So like if is it mazonos, then I'll have it. If it's not, then I've got to wash. So you know, I'm not talking about you and me, you know, all of us sitting here, because we'd never think that way. Okay. What we're talking about are people who just don't see the actual blessing in washing. You know, because we can sit, we can wash, and we can bench. You can have 1 slice of bread. I can't have 1 slice of bread. So if you wash, you can't have 1 slice of bread, especially toast. You can't have 1 slice of toast. You can have 1 slice of toast. I mean, I don't know who can have 1 slice of toast. You know, like that. So we actually, the process should really be that it's better to wash and have your piece of bread in order to bench than it is to have everything else. But we don't do that, so it's fine. We have to look how to. So when we should, and again, even any mazonos or anything, we should turn it into a meal. And the mazonos, the only way that mazonot becomes a thing is if it's really a snack, okay? And that's where mazonot bread and mazonot cracker, the way to have like at a kiddush, like you have the mazonot rolls or bread, so that for sure is considered a snack, because most people wouldn't think of it as a snack. But you can't have too much, otherwise you've got to bench. Okay, so we've got to be careful in the amounts that we really eat. And the products which have all 3 characteristics of pas, haba, bakisnim are indisputably not bread. For example, apple pie. Okay, anything that has a filling. Okay, the bracha rishona is borei minei mazonos, and then depending on how much you eat of it, okay, is definitely ala mechia, or if you eat too much of that, you actually do need to wash. So products which have 3 characteristics, if eaten as dessert, are indisputably not exempted by the benching, okay, and would not require a separate after bracha. So if one ate apple pie for dessert and not for satiation, a separate bracha would not be said. you would be included in your Birkat Hamazon. Okay? However, often people are partially hungry at the conclusion of their meal, and they eat apple pie for additional satiation, as well as for its dessert quality. In such a case, it would not still require a bracha, as we have explained above. Okay, now, products which have one or three of the characteristics of most types of cakes and crackers. If a product has only one of the three characteristics of what we call pas habab, kisnim, it is questionable as to whether it belongs under the classification of either bread or cake. Therefore, when determining if one must wash, we need to make birkat hamoitzi, we need to make hamoitzi and bench for such products. The uncertainty causes us to place them in a cake category. When judging if they require a bracha when eaten during a meal, the uncertainty causes us to take the opposite position and regard them as bread. Okay? So when you're not in a meal, we regard it as we can regard it as hamaitzi, but when we're in the meal, we don't make a separate question of making a mazoinus as well during the meal. Our rabbis advise that since in many cases making a bracha for cake eaten during a meal is questionable, one should have the intention, okay? And this is a really difficult thing because you don't know if you're going to get the cake to start with in the meal. So if somebody's not going to serve you cake, you can't really have the intentions of not to. But it's a good thing to think that if I'm going to have cake in the meal, it will not be a part of the meal, and therefore I will make ma'ala mechia on my borei minei mazonos on the cake that I'm going to have in the meal. Okay, we're going to begin the Torah prohibition of Birkat Hamazon, and then we will carry on Be'ezras Hashem next week, maybe, unless we have a guest speaker for Erev Shavuos. Can you imagine that? It is Erev Shavuos next week. Okay, so Shavuot will be the following Sunday night and Monday. I think it's hard to believe, for me, certainly, that we are back at Shavuot, but there we go. So this chapter that we're going to learn next, okay, deals with the very important subject of benching. For smoother reading, okay, let's see section, and we don't have to learn that. Okay, it's just telling us what we're going to do. Okay, so let's just understand the prerequisite for benching, for saying Birkat Hamazon. There are a number of important prerequisites for making a bracha, which are discussed. It is especially important to comply with these prerequisites for benching, since Birkat Hamazon is a Torah prohibition. One may not bench in the presence of bad odors emanating from a bathroom, or from diapers consisting of body waste. Do you know what? One may not bench if he has a need to go to the bathroom, and one may not bench in the presence of improperly clad persons. Okay? It is a mitzvah to bench after eating bread. Okay? Here we go. Without scarceness shall you eat therein bread, and you shall eat, and you shall be satiated, and you shall make a bracha to Hashem your God. That comes directly from the Torah in Devarim. The Torah connects eating bread to making a bracha, therefore giving us the positive commandment to bench, to make Birkat Hamazon after eating bread. It is a Torah obligation and a Torah commandment. So I think that when we look at this, we're going to do a little bit more beautiful ideas, which I have been learning recently. And benching and Birkat Hamazon and bread and everything is just, the whole concept of it is actually much bigger and greater. So we will start it properly again. And so the next part of our brachas is going to be all about benching, Birkat Hamazon, and our breads. Okay, And we will know I'll know probably later today if we have our guest speaker for next week. And that's it. So I'm going to just quickly share, we've got a couple of minutes, let's quickly just share a nice idea. I can't, next week, gosh, gonna have is our son Maya's, no, it can't be, 29th birthday. It is really scary, hey? 29 years ago, we had our dress in Manchester on Shavuos, and his birthday is his son ER 29th, 23rd today. Okay, let's see what Rabbi Twersky shares with us today. The building of young people may cause ruin, whereas the demolishing of elders may be constructive. Let's see. These words may not be welcomed in a youth-orientated culture. The Talmud gives us an example what happened after Rehoboam succeeded King Shlomo to the throne. People complained about the heavy taxation levied upon them during Solomon's reign. They requested relief from this burden, in return for which they would be loyal subjects. Rehoboam held counsel with the advisors who had served Shlomo HaMelech, and they suggested a conciliatory approach, saying, if you will accept the will of the people, they will remain loyal to you and serve you. Rehoboam then asked the advice of his friends with whom he had grown up, the younger people. And they said to him, tell the people that you plan to be more powerful than your father and will be both more demanding and more stringent in enforcing your demands. Rehoboam rejected the counsel of the elders. He followed the friends' advice and precipitated a ruinous breach in the unity of Israel, from which we still suffer today. Okay. Meaning, young people are very energetic and may be impatient and impetuous. People who have gone through the experiences of life have accumulated wisdom that is not attainable any other way. There's no doubt that today's youngsters may be far more skillful in operating a computer, and this he wrote 20 years ago, okay, than their parents and their grandparents. Although there are undoubtedly exceptions, some of the material often displayed on computers would not be so potentially harmful if it were designed by people who have weathered many of life's challenges. Okay, this does not mean that we should not listen to suggestions made by young people. However, we should be aware that when it clashes with the advice of more seasoned people, we should be wise to avoid Rehoboam's error. Okay. And Rabbi Twersky brings down a beautiful story. He says, Reb David of Dinov visited a spa where people had come from mineral water and hot spring baths. He was surprised to see that people were very proper in their home environment, act with laxity, with few inhibitions at the spa. Rav David said that the experience helped him to understand the Talmudic statement that the hot springs of Tiberia are residuals of the hot springs of the great deluge. No doubt this is also true of other hot springs. What purpose was there in leaving residuals of the flood? But now I understand. Future generations might wonder why the divine wrath was so intense that it warranted destroying humanity from the flood. Okay, in order that they might understand this, Hashem left a residual of the flood in these hot springs and the hot baths. When people see how uninhibited people become when they vacation at the spas, they will understand that there can be behavior that warrants a severe punishment. Get it? Interesting. Never read that before. But it's an interesting thing, and that is really, unfortunately, going towards any of our holiday things, the seas, the beaches, the things, they're not a thing of place that we're supposed to go. Not sometimes. We are a bit more lax. You know, that's what happens. You go to the beach, you dress like you're on the beach because that's what you do. But then unfortunately, you go from the beach to the shop, to the whatever. I'll tell you an interesting story quickly and we'll finish on this. A little while ago, how many years? I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't remember. We were in Spain. Must have been the year that I was doing my art. Okay. And we went up, we actually went to the statue of the Rambam. And on the way back, we stopped at a little. Now, don't ask me where we were, somewhere in the somewhere of Spain between the Marbella area and Cordova. And we stopped at a little. And you go into a little in Spain, who are you going to see that you know? No one, right? And we bump into somebody we know from Hendon. And the mother, where we're chatting, and the mother calls her daughter and she says, come here now. She says, I want you to meet Robertson Dove. And then she says to her, I told you, it doesn't make a difference where you go, whether you're going because you're worried about other people or not, you get dressed before you go off the beach or the pool. And she said to me, we were discussing whether we could just go in our swimsuits with the sarong put on, or if we needed to actually get dressed. And my daughter says, no, we can just go in our swimsuits. And I said, you know what? Just put on some clothing. And then we bumped into you. Can you imagine if I would have bumped into you in my swimsuit? So I was like, okay, you know what? It was Hashem's blessing for them, and I would not have, judged. But I do know somebody who many years ago, when he was a young, I think it was like in his teenage years, and they were at one of these villas in Spain, and they went to the local store. Again, no Jews are in that area. They go into the local store and he sees one of his neighbors in a bikini, sarong-covered bikini, nothing on her hair. That's like glasses or a little cap or something, And she would normally be wearing a shaitel and modest clothing. And he said he could never look at this neighbor. It was 2 doors down, but he could never look the person straight in the face. It was kind of like, and disappeared. So, that these are the things, because we take Hashem wherever we are. We don't, Hashem comes with us. So he even left us reminders, whether we're in a spa, whether we're at the Dead Sea, wherever we are, we have to still actually behave, at least in an appropriate fashion. Okay. I wish everybody a beautiful week. In Hashem, we should all just have good things. And we will, please God, see everybody soon.
Thanks, Joanne.
Pleasure. I hope you've got a good repair work there. I'll bring you mine.
Take care.
Okay, lots of
Bye.
love. Lots of
Joanne,
love,
have a lovely
Samantha.
day.
And
Be
you,
well.
lots of love.